So, this past weekend has been a pretty full weekend. It's been pretty good. It was General Conference, and for those that don't know, General Conference is a time when my general church leaders talk to the general body of the church in a broadcast. And the last 2020's general conferences have been really interesting because they've been broadcast only. Nobody's been able to meet in even meeting houses like they would in some other countries and areas due to the COOF pandemic going on. But in conference, they give general counsel about things, and sometimes there are announcements made, like new temples announced to be built, and that happened again, as per the normal standard. But many of the talks given by church leaders talked about being better, and that's basically a theme. Whatever subject you talk about is like, step up and be better. But this one was literally like, okay, assess yourselves and then step up to the plate more. There were a couple on preparedness, being prepared, and when they brought it up, they were very, very direct about it. But the main focus that kind of was very pertinent and that some people felt was tone deaf was the whole thing about being good to those around you, whether it be your neighbor or someone else. You had people saying that some of the leaders were tone deaf because they were talking about law and order in the context of also being kind to your neighbor. And so President Oaks gets up, Dallin H. Oaks, and he talks about law and order and how protesting, yes, is a legitimate thing. Having been a federal judge himself, and he was really close to being a Supreme Court justice appointee, but he ended up getting called as an apostle before that went through. But he talked about law and order and how just because there are certain grievances you have doesn't mean that you can go and vandalize another's property or destroy other people's things because of those grievances. There are legitimate ways to do it. Yes, peaceful protest is a way to do it, but that plays into the being considerate of your neighbor aspect, because most of these people are destroying the businesses of other people when they're arguing like systemic racism or whatever. They usually end up killing the businesses of locals rather than taking that grievance up with the government, who they say they have the grievance with, but when they take it out, they have it with other people, it seems, or they're just looking for an excuse to destroy. And then many people, business owners, including black business owners and other minority business owners, end up losing their whole life savings because somebody wasn't considerate to their neighbor. Another thing that was pointed multiple times is there's no room for racism of any kind. And when you see people demonizing, well, white people this, white people that, that's a form of racism. Like, you're blaming white people, you're calling white people demonic, you're saying white this, white that, and for the most part, especially with a generation that grew up with kids shows like Static Shock, and the like, where it was a diverse audience and not just flatline, well, I'm black and that's it. That's my, they were more than token black characters. It really boggles my mind how we got to where we are now, when we had that then, with a wide array and cast of people, including, like, in the kids' shows like Sesame Street. Growing up with that, and just seeing, oh, they're just people on TV, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? But yeah, more of the talk focused on being a good person, being a good neighbor. You can kind of pinpoint some of those themes. I think No, it was... Well, yeah, in general, you had a Saturday afternoon session was kind of more the step up to the plate one, but there were a couple talks about ministering or serving those around you and being good to those around you. And people on Twitter can say that they were tone deaf, but that's really what we needed, is consider those around you. Don't drop your grievances per se. Take those up in the proper way, but the proper way is not destroying your neighbor's property. You don't get what you want by attacking your neighbor when your grievance is with the government. When it's with the police, no, you don't attack your neighbor. And some people were like, well, they should have talked about police brutality and this, that, and the other. And it's like, maybe that police brutality really isn't the bigger issue. Maybe the bigger issue is that our hearts aren't set right. And people consider someone, their neighbor, less purely because of the color of their skin. And you kind of see that when you look at examples of some video footage of these critical race theory people giving their lectures to various groups and agencies, like, well, white people aren't human, they're demonic. It's like, is that not racist? Or because she's black, because she's a black whale, she can do that? That's still racist. White people are not human. It's like it's like, insert skin color person is not human. And that's what they've argued, that it's like, well, you didn't consider blacks human way back when. It's like, okay, so that makes it an excuse for you to do the same later on down the road? If you want to be treated with respect, then you've got to treat others with respect. Or you can't just expect it when you're acting like a whiny baby. And then you demonize other people purely based on the color of their skin and not on the content of their character. Martin Luther King expressly denounced white supremacy, and he expressly denounced black supremacy. He said that he wanted people to be considered on the content of their character. And now people are just kind of trampling all over it, using Martin Luther King as a symbol, but really not following the ideas that he set forth. They profess to want equality, but then they call for supremacy of some kind. You can't expect equality by putting one above the other. As someone put it, we're all one race. We all descended from one person. Most people in the world believe we descended from one lineage way back when, and one person, and then this diverse group of people came out of that one family, and here we are. So when you say, like, well, when you play down the argument that it's like we're all the human race and that we're blind to this race thing, and people are like, well, that's a white supremacist idea that we're all just one human race. It's like, how is that when you consider everyone equals? When you consider everyone your brother and sister because you're all descended, you see each other descended from the same family. I mean, sure, depending on the story, most people, I think, most people, I think, would stick with some sort of line. Yeah, sure, Cain and Abel. I mean, what's the difference in that? Well, Cain did a naughty, bad thing, and he was given a sign that he was cursed. But down the road, it's like, it's not like an individual is guilty of what happened way back when. I can't hold someone guilty now of something that they did way back when. All I have to do is hold them up to a new measure based on what I see from them as an individual. I can't always base someone's character on their parents, because sometimes kids turn out as better characters to their parents. I've kind of brought this up that, like, you generally do have this perpetual cycle, but there are people that decide to end the cycle, and so by holding all white people guilty of the slavery thing, it's like, one, you are promoting the original sin, which I think a lot of people don't believe in, for one. And for two, you're discounting also that blacks weren't the only ones that were slaves. You're also discounting that the Ottoman Empire had slavery going on, well, what, probably up until 1908 or a little bit past then? And even then, in the Middle East and in Africa, slavery is still a thing. And you are complaining about slavery way back when, from the 1800s? Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, in general, be considerate of your neighbor, and don't go and destroy their property because you're angry. That's not right. Peacefully protest, but don't break things. There's no reason for the violence. I mean, literally, it's written into law to peaceably assemble and, like, ask for a redress of grievances, really. But yeah, I'll have cool links down in the description, what all. Have a good one.